is your relationship with time? Are you wired and tired, stressed and overwhelmed, busy and going nowhere? Or just want to scale your business? Welcome to Take Back Time with your host, Penny Zanker. Penny focuses on books, strategies, tools, and tips to help you work smarter and approach your time more strategically. As a result, you can have more energy, focus, and get more done in less time. Be more efficient and effective. Get ready to take back time.
Hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zanker and I'm your host. And I am excited for you to be here because you are committed to thinking and acting more strategically. That is how you're going to work smarter. And today I'm super excited to have John Livesay with me because his specialty is storytelling. And I want you to see how through connecting with emotion, through your story, an authentic connection can help you to shorten your sales cycle, to make more sales, and to increase the connection that you're creating in those relationships. John has been noted or called the pitch whisperer. He is a sales keynote speaker, and he shares lessons that he learned from his award-winning sales career at Condé Nast. His TEDx talk, Be the Lifeguard of Your Own Life, has over 1 million views, and his best-selling book is Better Selling Through Storytelling. He's also a host of the Successful Pitch podcast, and it's being heard in over 60 countries, and he has an online course on becoming irresistible when you pitch. So that's why you need to get out some paper and a pen and welcome John.
Thanks, Penny. Great to be with you.
So the pitch whisperer, right? I'm already intrigued and excited just by hearing your bio and how you really can shift sales teams from being what I understand ordinary performers to really being those rock stars.
Well, that brings up a great point. There's something in our brain that we have real estate that wait a minute, I know what a horse whisperer is, and a lot of people know what a dog whisperer is,
right?
But we've never heard of a pitch whisperer. So the whole goal of a great elevator pitch, a great introduction, any kind of hook is that it intrigues our brain enough to go, oh, wait, that's something new. It sounds familiar, but there's a little twist to it. I am intrigued, that's the goal, to want to know more. And the problem most people make, Penny, when they give their elevator pitch is they think it's an invitation for a 10-minute monologue, as opposed to saying something that intrigues people to say, that's interesting, tell me more. What is a pitch whisperer? And then you have to have an answer ready to go. Yeah.
Like you said, it's a story in itself. And that story, I'm also hearing the results that you're getting, right? So that's already, we've got the intrigue, we've got the results, and of course, we've got lots of areas of credibility. How did you come to this field?
Well, I majored in advertising when I was in school. I loved the combination of entertainment and business. And that jingle on a commercial or a headline that pulls you in, or people, talking about commercials. Cut to majoring in it in college and getting to be interviewed by Adweek as to what I thought were the best Super Bowl commercials that were telling the best stories.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, exactly. A full circle moment of, wow, that's what big brands are doing, spending millions of dollars on production and the time to tell their story in a 30-second spot.
That's right.
So I went through some intense sales training in the computer tech industry, and that really is great training for figuring out how you get people to spend millions of dollars on computers. And then I went and worked at an ad agency doing commercials for movies when they were coming out on DVD. So that was really honed my story.
Movies all story, right? So that's
all story. And how do you reposition?
Perfect combination.
And how do you reposition a movie that didn't do so well theatrically that you might want to get people to go rent it or watch it on a DVD or wherever? So it was great lessons of you can reposition a movie. And then I talk about genres of storytelling now when I give my talks to sales teams of figure out what your genre is, and here's a movie that's using it, and here's a brand that's using it. So once you connect those dots for people, they start looking at movies differently. They start looking at commercials differently. They go, oh, they're following the rags to riches genre.
Interesting, right? Well, that's very interesting. I love hearing how people connect the dots to come about to what their gift is, right? And it's usually very rare that somebody finds their gift right away, right? It's got to be through like a a path.
It was, it was the hero's journey, as they talk about in storytelling.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I was selling advertising for many years, and then I just realized that whoever told the best story was most likely to be memorable, because that's the big problem when you don't tell a story is you just push out a bunch of facts and figures and people forget. And then the next person comes in, and then it all becomes like it's all a blur to the buyer, and they think, well, I guess I'm just going to buy the cheapest. But when there's a story, there's an emotional connection, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
And people buy emotionally and back it up with logic. And that's really a first aha for most people. Like if you go buy a sports car, I promise you, or a Mare's bag or what have you, they're not saying how many miles per gallon it gets. They're saying how fun it is to drive or how sexy you're going to feel in it.
Right. Totally. Sex sells, right? Right. So it is so important. And very often I think that there's different brained people, right? There's people who think with the logical side and that's sort of where they live. And there's those creatives who are on the other side. What's your experience been, right? We have a lot of people on who are productivity mongers, right? Some people who want it because they're on the creative brain and that's not the way they think. And there's others that just want more of how they think. What are some of the responses that you've had with people who have interacted with your storytelling that show how each of those sides of our brain embraces from the storyteller, not from the receiver, but from the teller?
Well, recently, Marianne Knopp, who's a virtual assistant, watched one of my webinars on telling stories and signed up to take my course because she said, I'm so left brain oriented. My job is to make my clients more productive and take tasks on that they don't want to do or shouldn't be doing. It's not a good use of your time. And, you know, she said, my greatest aha moment was realizing I needed to shift from my whole life. I don't think of my life in terms of stories. If I want to get people to hire me, I need to be able to tell my own story. And she hadn't even thought of that as a skill she needed.
Right. So she thinks numbers, and so she communicates numbers and doesn't realize that's important, but maybe not the selling point, right? Not the point that gets people to take action.
Because if you're going to hire a virtual assistant, yes, you want them to make you more productive, but you also want to have an emotional connection with them, and you're trusting them with your passwords, and you've got to have a sense of who they are and how they got there. So everyone's story of origin, which is what you just asked me to tell you, is so key to learn how to do it. And then I've worked with very creative people like an architecture firm. They design airports and law offices and all these things, interior and exteriors. And they have to sell their work to get hired. I recently helped them win $1 billion airport project redoing the Pittsburgh airport. And it was between them and two other firms that were in the final three. And they said, we typically show our work and hope that that's enough to win it. And this client, Penny, said to them, y'all could do the work. That's why you're in the final three. We're going to hire the firm we like the most because we have to work with you for the next 6 years. And that's when they said, oh my God, get John in here. What? How do we don't have where do we even start to make ourselves likable?
Right. But that's so true. You know, just to stop you there and have people think about that, is that when you're bidding for something and you're in the top choices, it's absolutely true. They know that all of those choices can do the work. And it does come down to who they're going to like best or who they trust also, right? Comes down from that connection.
Well, let's talk about that, because the old way of people thinking, well, if people get to know, like, and trust me, that's the phrase we've heard a lot.
Right.
And the problem, Penny, is that when people think, okay, first you got to know me, then you'll like me, and then you'll trust me. Well, that means I need to get you to know me. So blah, here's a bunch of information. And I tell people the order's wrong. You need to start with trust. So it's a gut thing. In fact,
so how do you do that?
Well, the handshake came about to show we don't have a weapon in our hand. So it's a fight. Isn't that cool? We're in a fight or flight response when we're building trust. So certainly an introduction, social proof, all those things, eye contact if you're in person or even on a Zoom call, make eye contact. So let people know that this is a safe place. Their fight or flight response can turn off from either, our friend introduced us, other things. Then it moves from the gut to the heart. Do I like you? The likability factor we talked about.
Right.
And the way you show more likability is empathy. The doctors spend more time with patients they like. Teachers spend more time with students they like. The better you show you understand a problem of a client is experiencing, the more empathy you show for that, the more they think you have your solution and the more likable you are. The phrase is, you get me.
And yes. And not you're right. I heard FBI negotiator Chris Voss, he talked about
guy.
that. You get me, that's right, was one of the things he said, that that you've built that connection, right? Yes. And he's talking about like during a negotiation of a hostage situation.
Yes.
So that just goes to show you it works in any situation, right?
Works in every situation, because you've got to get that empathy factor built so that the better you describe the problem through empathy, what it feels like to be overwhelmed or whatever the issue is, and then it goes from the heart to the head. And still, it's not an invitation to dump a bunch of information. It's, do I see myself in the story of another client you've helped? Mm-hmm. Will this work for me is the unspoken question there, Penny.
Right.
And once you answer that, and you've told a story of someone else you've helped, or in the case of the architecture firm, I was helping them tell their story of another airport they renovated. But originally, they just had some before and after pictures. There was no story.
Right.
So we created a story. We turned a boring case study into a case story that was compelling and memorable, and that's what caused them to win.
I love that. I'm taking notes. So if I'm looking down, it's because I'm like, ooh, this is good stuff, right? So I know all of you are taking notes too. And if you're not, you better rewind and start taking notes, because those are beautiful, important nuggets, right? To say that the industry talks about that know, like, and trust, and you're saying flip that around, and that it's trust. How does that go? Trust.
Well, the easy way to remember it is gut, heart, head.
Gut, heart, head, right.
Yes, move up. So it's gut is your trust, your heart's about likability, and your head is about, will this work for me?
Oh, got it. Okay. I love it. I think that it makes so much sense, and it's like, duh. No? I mean...
Yes, but that's what causes our brain to want to learn something new. When we think the old way of doing this is we just accept it, but when we take another look at it or hear another perception of it and a reason to do it, that's what causes people to change behavior.
Absolutely. They have to really be connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fantastic. So what else do you think is important? Like, what are the common mistakes that people, when they start to tell their story, what are the common mistakes that they make that may throw them off from getting that connection that they're looking for?
Well, the biggest mistake I see people making is that their stories don't have a point, and they just go on and on. We've all been stuck at a party where someone's just telling a story. You're like, is there any moral here? Is there any ending anytime soon? And the problem is people don't understand the structure to tell a good story.
Right.
And they either put 2 or 3 of the things in, but not all 4. So let's help some people not make those mistakes and give them the 4 parts of a good story so that they can start being better storytellers.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm going to tell you a story, and then we're going to break it down.
Cool.
So one of the things I do with my clients as part of being the pitch whisperer, like a horse whisperer, I help them with their confidence, calm them down when they get in front of people and they get nervous, when stakes are high for getting a job or getting hired as a client or whatever is going on. So I have them write down some moments of certainty in their life. When you ask someone out on a date, you got a second date, you ask your spouse to marry you, you got a yes, you got a job. Remember those moments of other successful things and write them down. Mm-hmm. And I had my client Martin do this, and he goes, God, the thing that really stands out for me, my big moment of certainty, is remembering that, I was born in South America, but I was raised in the Netherlands. And when I turned 18, my parents took me back to South America and dropped me off naked in the Amazon jungle to survive for 2 weeks because in my culture, that's a rite of passage into manhood.
Wow.
And I had the exact same reaction. I go, oh, that gives me chills. Let's work on that. I said, what lessons did you learn in the Amazon jungle? Well, I learned how to focus and pivot and persevere. Great. You're going to take those lessons from the Amazon jungle into the concrete jungle of being an entrepreneur. And when he gave that pitch, told that story, he got his startup funded because the investors said, this guy will figure out anything. He survived that.
Right.
So that's a short little story, right?
Yeah.
Distractions are the enemy of productivity. Go to distractionquiz.com and find out your distraction profile. Are you a time zombie or a hamster? Take this free distraction quiz today to rate your ability to focus on what keeps you from being a wizard. Go to distractionquiz.com.
So what makes it work is the structure. So the first part is exposition, just like a journalist. Who, what, where, when. Paint that picture so people know where they are in the story. So I said to Martin, when he was practicing it with me, I said, if you don't say that's a rite of passage in your culture, it sounds like child abuse.
Yeah, totally. I was like, oh my God, who would do that to their kid?
Right. So you need to paint that picture. So we know he's 18. We know he's in the Amazon jungle. We know why he's there. Okay, great exposition. The problem clearly is he's there naked for 2 weeks. We just can only imagine. The stakes are pretty high. The solution is not only does he survive, but he learns those life lessons of focusing and all that good stuff. And here's the secret sauce, Penny, the resolution of the story. By telling that story, he got a startup funded and he could survive the Amazon jungle to the concrete jungle. And that makes people, again, lock that in, makes it memorable. Oh, I hadn't thought of the Amazon jungle compared to the concrete jungle. Okay, so that's something new that's going to make me remember that story a little bit better. And there's a nice resolution to it.
You know what I love about that is it's also, you just did that in what, like 2 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
So in gaining people's trust, it doesn't need to be a long story. It doesn't have to be drawn out and whatnot. You know, I have a question for you. So as a speaker, right? So I know you do a lot of speaking and I do a lot of speaking and there's lots of different philosophies. And there's an idea of introducing part of the story, kind of leaving an open loop and then coming back to the story. What's your position on that in terms of engaging people and getting them more connected and bringing?
Well, when I am telling a story, I typically tell the whole story because my whole goal is for people to have that emotional journey with me and then learn how to become a storyteller. But there are certain techniques. For example, when I give whoever has hired me to come and speak my introduction to read, I don't have them read my bio. I customize an introduction and do an open loop in the introduction. So one of the things in the introduction is John Livesay met Michael Phelps, and he's going to share that story of lessons he learned from meeting him in his talk. So that's an open loop. So now they're like, oh, maybe I should listen to this guy's talk. I can't wait to hear the Michael Phelps story. So I use it there.
Cool. Okay. Gotcha. Very good. Very good. So this is awesome. So you're helping us to understand what's the structure, right? And that the common mistakes is that people don't use all of those elements or they talk too much and go in too much detail without bringing it to the problem, the solution, and the resolution. Exactly. Are there any other core tips that you wanted to bring to the audience today?
Yes, I think that the real core tip is make sure that there's something that is a life lesson, not just for you, but for the audience. So since I've already teased out the Michael Phelps story, why don't I tell that story?
Okay.
When I was selling advertising, my job was at a fashion magazine, and Speedo was in my territory, and they were coming out with a line of sportswear. And I went to call on them to see if they'd consider advertising, and they said, oh, no, we're going to advertise in a fitness magazine. And I said these two magic words, what if? And that's a great tip for everybody to get people in the imagination part of the brain. And I said, well, what if we treated your sportswear like it was high fashion? And we could have a fashion show around a hotel swimming pool, and you could invite Michael Phelps since he's a spokesperson, he's on your payroll, and that got all kinds of publicity. And they went, oh, we like that idea. So yes, I got the advertising, but more importantly for me, I got to meet Michael Phelps. As a former lifeguard, that was a big thrill. So I said to him, Michael, everybody says, you're so successful because you've got feet that look like fins and your lung capacity. I'm guessing there's something else. And he said, yes, John. My coach said to me, Michael, are you willing to work out on Sundays? Yes, coach. Great. We just got 52 more workouts in a year than your competition. So the question becomes, what are you willing to do that your competition isn't willing to do to get yourself at that Olympic level of your business? So you see how I did the same structure again?
Yes.
I told you how I got to meet him. And I described, there was a problem. They were saying no until I came up with that solution for the idea. And then the resolution is all about those Michael Phelps life lessons that made people don't know that about him. And then tying it into what are you willing to do that your competition isn't is a great takeaway for people. Absolutely. Through a story.
Right. And it's important that it's true, right? I mean, I think that that's also, I would say,
I got a picture of me with him. Yeah.
But to prove it. A mistake that I see or experience is that it feels like it's not congruent with someone. Like they might be telling a story, but they don't feel natural in the story.
Yeah.
So either it's not true for them or they haven't practiced it to really.
Yeah. And the other technique I did there, I don't know if you noticed it or not, is I told the story in present tense through dialogue. That pulls people in.
Okay.
Yes, coach. Yes, Michael, are you willing? Instead of saying, Michael's coach asked him, I told it as if it was happening in real time.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that one. That's a really good difference. So by telling it in that first person present is engaging people more. So it's having them like,
it's like a movie. I'm listening to dialogue. Yeah, I can see myself. John said, then Michael said, then Michael told. So it's a story within a story. So I'm telling you the story of my conversation with Michael, and then I'm taking you into the story Michael had with his coach, all in present tense.
Right. Very cool.
That's the fun part of when you get really great at storytelling. You can do multiple stories within stories. That's
awesome. That's awesome. Well, I have 2 questions to ask you before we wrap up and find out really how people can get more information about having you come speak, or I know that you've got your book and online courses, so we want to find out about that. But before we do that, what would you consider to be a shortcut? So we're talking about productivity. So what's your shortcut that you use to get ahead?
My shortcut is so old school. But I was talking to a friend yesterday who was feeling overwhelmed, and I said, at the end of the day, Constance, I don't know if I've accomplished anything. And I said, it's a common feeling, especially if we're quarantined where everything blurs together. I said, my shortcut is I write down the night before 3 things I need to get done the next day. And then I look at that list at the end of the day, and just the physical checking off that box, Penny, makes me feel good.
Of course it's dopamine, right? We're feeding ourselves with dopamine for sure. Awesome. And then helps you to focus on those 3 things because you decided the night before. You don't waste any time when you get up. You're just on it.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. And is there a question that you underlyingly ask yourself? And what's the result of that question for you?
In terms of productivity, correct? The question I ask myself?
Anything, right? Because it could be productivity, but it could be, we all have like this primary question that drives us that we constantly ask ourselves.
Well, I can tell you when something upsets me or someone has said or done something that is upsetting, I ask myself this question. It's a relatively long question, but will this matter in 5 minutes from now, 5 days from now, 5 months from now, 5 years from now? And the more time I put on that question to myself, of course not. I won't even remember it. And I'm making such a big deal out of whatever happened.
Right.
So that helps me keep perspective, that question.
Absolutely. Awesome. I love it. Great. And lastly, what's your definition of productivity and why?
My definition of productivity is figuring out what I want to get done and then getting it done, and not always having it done by myself and outsourcing things that other people are great at.
Awesome. Absolutely. Right. We can't do it all ourselves. And why should we? We're not the best person to do it.
Right. I don't do my own taxes, for example, nor do I cut my hair. Yeah. Things like that.
Totally. So. Awesome. Well, thank you for all of your great wisdom that you've shared with us today. I know I took a lot of notes, so I know everybody else took a lot of value away from this as well. So how do people get in touch with you? We will definitely put in the show notes, but just give them the sites that they can go to and what it is that you have that you're offering and that you're excited about.
Yes. Well, I have a free gift for everybody listening. If you take out your phone and type in this number, 66866, and then type in the word pitch, PITCH, you'll get a free PDF that has some of my best storytelling secrets in it. And if you want to find out more about the online course where you can really dig in and start becoming a better storyteller and then work with me once a week for 10 weeks in a group setting, it's johnlivesay.com/sales. That will take you there. And if you can't remember any of that, just Google the pitch whisper and my content will show up.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Penny.
And thank you all for being here. I know that you've heard these stories and you could see the impact that it had on you, how they grabbed you in and how it would move you to take action. And you can now relate on how that's going to serve you when you put that into practice in your business, because it doesn't matter whether you have your own company or you work for a company, right? Just because you may not be a salesperson doesn't mean that these stories aren't important, They're important in your relationships with your family. You want to get your kids to do something? How can you tell a story that's going to motivate your kids, right? And if you are able to use your stories also to help your team, to motivate your team to move forward, no matter whether you're in sales or operations or anything, this storytelling, right, is a way to better connect and also collaborate with the people that you're working with. So, and we're all working with someone in some capacity. And not to mention that, but John and I didn't talk about this, but this could be another session that he and I have. There's always the story that you tell yourself. And that's also just as important as the story that you're sharing out, and what story you've chosen to live in, and how you're going to tell the story and write the story for your next chapter. So we'll leave that as an open loop for you to come back, and perhaps John and I will take on that sometime in the future. Thank you all for being here. My name is Penny Zanker, and this is Take Back Time. See you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening. Today's topic is another opportunity for you to put the knowledge you learned into practice. Tune in again next week for more strategies that will help you have more energy and focus to get more done in less time, so you can continue to take back time.